All right. Almost everything has completely changed. I'm much fatter, far more slug-like. I got a really bright light. It's been a long time, and I've actually shaved. I'm also wearing farmer's overalls. So, back at it. This next scene here. This is I was gonna say it's catharsis, but that's not the right term. It's just the tragedy, or it's the characters slowing down enough time to feel the tragedy. Um, Now I wanted to make a very quick note on the conclusion of the previous scene, the final instant of the battle for the two rivers, where Moraine, fully tears down the face, the front of the facade of the inn, whatever the inn's name is, the Wine Spring Inn, and throws it at the Trollocs. I wanted to say, I mean, other than the aforementioned issues of magic foo and that kind of thing, is pretty decent. Land didn't get quite enough screen time for his swordplay to show the fakeness of it. He just slashed a couple of things. That's about it. Um, we have some weird time stuff going on, right? There's a little bit of a discontinuity in the time and the feeling of the time. But what they are trying to do is show that, during the instant that Moraine tears 40 rocks out of the wall and flings them, this whole thing is supposed to happen in 3 seconds. But then at the same time, you have the Trollocs running from one end of the village square to the other. Trollocs run at the speed of a horse. Okay, that would have been like 2.5 seconds, maybe 4 seconds, right? So like it feels wrong. There's too much time of them spent running, and then you can see that how they somehow fix that, because every time she throws the rocks at them, they're just standing there, looking menacing. They're not moving at all, or running, or acting, or spreading around, spreading out, attacking. Not they're just standing there being targets. Which, again, they didn't want to choreograph a battle scene. They just wanted to edit in the magic. And it passes so quickly. Whatever, it's fine. I like to see things. I like to see giant rocks thrown at Trollocs. That's fun. And then we have Rand stumbling into town, carrying his father. Everybody's broken up and damaged and killed, and it's terrible. One quick note here is that Rand said one of the phrases from the books. One of the phrases from the books, light bless you, things like that, right? They have all sorts of different swear words and such, blood and ashes. But he said, thank the light. And I just wanted to note that he said it really well. It was like really well said, it felt heartfelt, but it wasn't something we hear. And so it was a manufactured swear word that he put the proper emotion into. So, kudos on that. Thank you. That sounds good. All of the acting scene, this is up until Moraine heals Rand's father. The acting, I thought it was pretty decent. I didn't really see anything terribly cringy. It was pretty normal. It seemed pretty good, with the exception of, again, Matt's parents. They are. I just watched another review of The Wheel of Time, and the man referred to them as comically evil, which is a good description, I think. They're just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's wildly ridiculous. We do get. I think we've seen this before, but we do get a clear shot of Moraine's ring, which again just looks ridiculous. It looks like you're carrying a bucket on your finger. What the fuck, right? Are you going to the watering hole? What the hell, right? That's ridiculous. Actually, if it were filled with water, it would literally be useful. That would be enough to get you through like a day's worth of travel. When you're starving to death or dehydrated to death. Silly ring and stuff. And then of course we have that. One of the main changes from the books is that people aren't being in shock after they've been healed. There doesn't seem to be much weakness that they're talking about. They're not, shocked to be healed. They don't even react. It's just, oh, you fixed it, okay. So that's the scene breakdown. The writing, the visuals were great. A lot of mud. It's kind of terrible. The blood was good. The clothing was good. I had a minor issue with, say, Perrin's expression. he was doing a good job of just being blank and in shock, and good, that's great. Um, it doesn't always have to go that way, but if they chose to go that way, okay, sure, sure. I've seen people who just return to their normal activities. I'm doing this now. I'm doing this now. I'm doing this, but inside they're in shock, right? That can happen too. I kind of like the sound, although it was a little overblown. They're using a very powerful piece slightly too early. We kind of don't really care enough about these characters yet to know. We haven't spent quite enough time with them yet, right? It they again the other review was actually mentioning the same thing, and this is not universally held without a doubt among the people who aren't making money off the show. But you should have spent a hell of a lot more time setting this up. Sorry that you needed a slow burn to convey a slow burn story. You need a slow burn story. I just right. Accuracy. The healing was wrong. That didn't make any sense. Uh, we also we also don't see Moraine pull from her Angreal. We don't. There's no indication of that. The little fat man, I think, or the little sitting man, or something, right? Yeah, I didn't really see any of that. Okay. All right, now this will end up being the last shot of the episode. I figured I would just do a little shorter one just because it ended, kind of caught me by surprise ending. I was like, oh, that was a good rendition by Moraine of, the let the wind ride again to the wheel of time or whatever, right? Um, and then I realized, oh crap, they're closing the episode. Anyway, so here we have the aftermath of the healing. Everybody got healed, everybody's back to normal, and then Moraine says, okay, now back to business. And I like that again. They're nailing the fucking characterization. Oh my god, Rand. He doesn't even thank her, right? He watches Moraine heal his father. He's healed, and he looks at her and says, in his mind, "So do I thank her now?" And the conclusion he comes to is, "No. I'm pretty sure she's working in her own self-interest here. She's got something going on. I want to know what it is." Right? He's curious and not disrespectful, but like focused and not rebellious, distrustful of authority, right? Unjustified authority, quite healthy, right? And so the plot, boom, here we go. Plot picks up. Plot started. Here we go. We do have during this speech, we do have a Moraine is telling the characters, we gotta go, we gotta leave the village. They're after you. During that speech, we do have one slight interjection from Matt. It's one of the humorous interludes that they're trying to shoehorn in, which the book did as well, right? Absolutely. Normally, the injected humorous interludes tend to be they tend to break the continuity. They tend to break the immersion because they're some sort of topical remark or some line from a rap song or something that just kind of ruins everything and brings you out of the moment. But even though it's usually quite funny, I think they're all rather. I think the humor in this actually was rather fucking spectacular. Actually, this one it wasn't really particularly good, but all he said was, "Have you fully lost your mind?" After she said, "The dragon is reborn and it's one of you," right? Which I would point out is not exactly modern, right? Could fit within the story, right? It makes sense because there are a lot of people who have what is it the dragon sworn, right? We see later religion is a big aspect of this book, and so if have you lost your mind really kind of fits there. So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't funny, but it wasn't too bad. During this whole scene, Moraine's acting was rather good. I was quite impressed. She delivered all of the speeches with not too much gravitas and drama, but enough, and there was a lot that was needed, right? And she did a lot of it. She did it a lot, and it was the right amount, and it worked out great. The pausing at the right point, the speaking was appropriate. Really, really quite good. However, one quick little thing I noticed on like the accuracy of the books, part of the way she convinces them to leave is by pointing out, again, Aes Sedai logic and reason and rationality and things like that. Things like that. Pointing out, they attacked your farm, and your farm. 3 young men of the exact same age, born at the exact same time, right? Now they can't do that anymore because they made girls be able to be the dragon or the dragon be able to be born or whoever, right? So you've changed the books and now it's showing through and the cracks are coming. All she did was just said they're after you, and they just trusted it. Not sure how or why. Maybe I'm forgetting a previous scene. It's actually been like several months since I recorded the last scene, or a month or two, so I've forgotten everything. Well, onward to the next episode. Okay, beginning of episode 2. So, starting out, we have the intro segment, which in this case was the White Cloaks. So let's give that a whirl. I don't want to just give my impressions here. I got to talk about the writing and the visuals and the acting and the sound and the music and the accuracy of the books. So one thing I wanted to point out that the White Cloaks, their costumes, their swords, their tents, horses and such like that, it's really well done. They really, I don't know, maybe if this is just like really easy to do or something, but probably not, right? This is really fantastic. Like, this is what a horse party camp would look like if it were a little ostentatious, a little bit, if you were traveling with high level dignitaries in the government, if you felt like you were very important. I mean, it's great. It's really good stuff. You can see that even though they're horsemen, their costuming is extremely clean and white. Interesting. It reveals their purity, their feelings of their purity and stuff. Their tents are decorated, but not tinker level decorated, right? It's like a dignified, it's like religion, right? It's like religion. Really quite liked it all. I love the looks and the intro, and of course the intro shot. All of the geography is just incredible, just absolutely incredible. So we have a little intro scene, and we see the who turns out to be a questioner. Is it? I can't remember. Is it Valda? I think it's Valda. I get Valda and the two White Cloaks, the one Bornhold and such, mixed up as they're like chasing Rand across the Almost plain and stuff. I get them mixed up. I always thought it was Valda or something like that. Because they're all the same, right? They're all evil motherfuckers. Political swordsman kind of thing. And then we have Valda, and great character, quite like him, totally sinister. You definitely giving off evil vibes, but also at the same time highly intelligent, driven, motivated, focused. Definitely a terrifying villain. I particularly liked the bird eating. I want to know if that's some sort of thingy tradition that some people do. Because for one, it just looked delicious. Like, that looked absolutely delicious. If I could get somebody to catch a small bird for me, clean it, cook it, flash fry it or something, right? That looks absolutely delicious. And the idea that the bones cut your gums and the blood adds to the flavor, that's awesome. That's a great little touch right there. I quite liked that. I also took special notice of the decorations in the office being excellent, well in tune, right? Well put together. The wine decanter was real fancy. I think it's a little more fancy than they had at that time in that era. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. The metal looked a little bit precisely shaped. I don't know. Did they have the mixture between glass and metal down that well at that age? That during that age, I'm not really sure. Quite like that, and it was all again, very decorative and ostentatious and fancy, which is, but also realistic for a horse-drawn party. Is it going to take a lot of members to carry that? Yes, but did you carry a 600-pound chest? No, that's ridiculous. That didn't really happen. They covered their bases. They paid attention to what the book said, right? Like the pattern on the rug or something like that actually matches whatever they're saying. And then we get the yellow Ajah Aes Sedai being killed. This was never mentioned in the books, right? Forkroot tongue, forkroot tongue fork root, the root fork root, shuts down channeling. But that wasn't discovered until much later. So the normal references to White Cloaks killing Aes Sedai was ambushing them by surprise with an arrow, uh, in close quarters, getting in close real fast before she can react. Right, that was how they killed them. Cutting off their hands to prevent the channeling was only briefly mentioned once or twice. It was never implied that that was ever a method anyone employed that I remember, and it may not work anyway because in the books, yes, it's easier to channel without your hands, but you can channel without your hands. Maybe some can't, but there is certainly channeling without gestures. That does in fact happen. I'm reasonably certain about that. Maybe not. So we have her, and he's burning her at the stake, which I don't think that was a thing, right? That was probably a little bit too on the nose, an illusion for Jordan to make. Maybe he just didn't decide to do that. But either way, totally brutal, terrible, horrible. And this is showing the level of brutality that the show is going to show us with, right? It's not Game of Thrones where you would do this scene and then you would take her off the rack and peel her skin off and be off. I don't want to see that shit, right? This is as bad as it gets, and this is pretty fucking bad. I don't really like watching this shit, but it's worth sticking it through it. Then we have the intro, the real intro, and again, the music, spectacular. I'm just listening to this on shitty little laptop speakers this time, and even then, it's just amazing. The animation is really quite good as well. I rather like that. Paying a lot of attention to tapestries and threads and things like that, just like the book mentions a lot, really paying homage there. And then we have the ferry scene. Moraine sinks a ferry because Trollocs will not cross deep water. Wanted to make a comment on that. Was it Tolkien who came up with that concept? That deep water is some sort of barrier to things? Because the riders wouldn't cross the river. If he did, well, I mean, maybe that makes sense because not Ungoliant. What's the name of the water, Valar? I can't remember, but that kind of makes sense because there were two real seriously strong Valar in the old days of the Tolkien, and one of them was Earth, one of them was water. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, he didn't mess around. Like, he was big. He was a big dude. So I mean, that kind of makes sense. Just curious where that came from. Matt does try to make a joke here. Trollocs won't cross deep water. No wonder they smell like piss. Not that funny. I mean, he's got the chops to deliver really funny lines, but that one just wasn't very funny. But again, it did not break continuity. It wasn't really anything outside of what you would hear in a medieval setting, so I quite like it. I'm quite fine with it. And then we have two things here. First, let's do the drama, which is a little bit ridiculous. So the acting or the writing here was a little poor. The visuals were great. I thought the Trolloc models looked fantastic. They really did. Yeah, Trolloc models looked fantastic. The horseshoes were really cool on the mirror draw. It was good. I mean, it was all the visuals were great. Also, the visuals of the sinking of the ferry, quite well done. The whirlpool looked quite convincing. I mean, obviously, it didn't look real in a river that size, right? That's kind of silly, but it still looked really good. It looked really good. The weaves going in and out of the water was great. Quite liked it. And the motion, the physics of the ferry going into the whirlpool actually looked somewhat realistic. It didn't look silly like it was just floating and they didn't really get the physics of it right. Looked pretty decent. I didn't notice any incongruities there. But then you have some small issues with the scene, and that is the ferryman's logic. I mean, you could argue, hey, he wanted to get back across the ocean, the river, to go save his family, and he was kind of in shock and didn't really want to deal with it and wasn't thinking clearly. Great. But the problem was the acting was not portraying that. The acting was portraying a very rational, logical man, looking and thinking and speaking clearly. about it and coming to utterly irrational conclusions. I'm sorry, your son's gonna die. That sucks, but at least run 50 yards up the river before you try to sneak across. How else are you get what? What are you gonna float the ferry? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. What's gonna happen when you're 10 feet away and they're literally swinging swords already? Like, are you gonna walk into a line of swords? That doesn't make any sense, right? That's totally irrational. Um, so it was kind of weird. It's kind of weird, and and I don't think he responds quite properly to Moraine being an Aes Sedai either. She sinks the ferry, prevents him from saving his son. I get it; it sucks, but she's not a monster. She was clearly doing it to escape and to help 5 other people escape. No, that doesn't mean the White Cloaks are right. That means she was dealing with a hard circumstance. Like, come on. Like, what if you're in a wartime zone, right? And a soldier and a platoon come up and they have to do some terrible act to get out of there, and it happens to hurt you, but it doesn't hurt the. Like, you're not going to think they're monsters. You're going to think, oh, you got put into a fucked up situation. That sucks. Like it's not rational thinking. I was curious about Rand here. I believe in the books, Rand does kind of. I'm not sure if it's Rand, maybe it's Egwene or something like they show, but they kind of push in the direction of, was Moraine wrong to do that? And the others, and the eventual conclusion is, I mean, she kind of had to. Like, there was, I mean, it sucks that we're in that situation, but no, she had to do that. I don't think it makes any sense to make the peasant unable to think that properly. No, I admit I do think that's appropriate. I've met people who can't reason their way through that situation. Yeah. And I think this whole thing was fairly accurate to the books, actually. I mean, other than the burning of the Aes Sedai, we don't see that. And I don't mean just did they portray what's in the books. I mean, is it the kind of thing White Cloaks are doing? And yeah, absolutely, they were doing that at the time. They were out hunting all kinds of Aes Sedai, for sure. Okay, I think the sunlight is getting a little carried away here. Now I've got red flashes hitting my head or something. I have no idea what that is about. Oh, is it this thing? Yeah, hitting the camera maybe. Anyway, okay, so nowadays on this scene we've got the camp. So they run from the Trollocs, they get across the ferry, they run all night. They gallop all night, or all day rather. They finally pull into camp, settle in, they find a place, some little stashed building in the rocks or something. Hard to tell. Like in a mountain, like in a cliff, kind of strange. And we have them all sitting around the camp after Moraine heals the horses. Um, True to the books, like that. No issues with the healing of the horses. Land gives his warning. I mean, they need your strength. They need strength, but you need yours too, right? He's trying to get her to slow the hell down a little bit. Worrying about her normal stuff works great. Didn't have any issues with it. The Emmonsfield 3, now 4, Emmonsfield 4 rather, discuss the dragon. Right, they're talking about the myths in their world coming true in their face. Is it real? Is it going to happen? Great. It was well done, and I want to just point out all of them did really good on the acting. The dialogue flowed smoothly. The expressions matched everything properly. There was no wild jump in composures or something like that. Right? It was all great. You did have a little bit of Matt being way too flippant, like way too flippant. Like, it's fine to be flippant if that's your personality. That's great, but you don't need to turn everything into a joke. You can have a response that's not a joke. That's okay. And most of what he said didn't really add anything. It wasn't funny. It didn't really do anything really for the dialogue. But he was there. He was participating. He was listening. So everybody goes to bed. I quite like that scene. Everything was great. I didn't have any issues with it. The writing was quite good, and it was all fairly accurate as to the books. They were okay. Was it? What were they saying? The dragon. He could be reborn. Could be any of you four. I'm sure they have Oh no, no. I think at this point, it's still taboo among them to discuss it, because all that Moraine has told them at this point is that the Dark One is after you. They didn't. She didn't reveal to them that they're after you because one of you is the dragon. They didn't know yet. I don't think. Like this is when they're still fleeing the village and such before they get split up. They didn't know any of that. All they knew was that the Dark One is involved. That alone is enough to be craziness, right? Um, so I think that part is inaccurate. But either way, it kind of reflects everybody's concerns about it. It could be any of us. Is she right? Is she actually telling the truth? You know, there was a lot more in the books. She's an Aes Sedai. She could be lying to us, right? Um, oh no, there was some of that in this scene as well. Yep, Matt made a couple of comments about, you know, I'd rather trust her than everybody else, right? It isn't time for the, you know, I trust the lady who can throw fireballs scene yet. That's coming later. And then we have a little interlude after everybody goes to bed where Moraine comes in to the party and senses Egwene's ability to channel. Which we never get any explicit mention of in the books. Egwene might have mentioned that she sensed Egwene can channel. Something about, oh no, she did specifically mention when she did it. There's something about when she came into the village. That's right. But the problem here is that she had to do so physically with a gesture. That's not ever described in the books, ever. In fact, it's always described the opposite. It's always an internal thought. I can feel how much you can channel or something. And even with men, when it describes them detecting the ability to channel to another man, it is literally just a sense of danger and foreboding. That's it. There's nothing else. There is no motion whatsoever, very clearly defined in the book. So that is a break. Egwene gets up. They go out and they have their teaching moment. There's a lot of exposition not in the bad way, but this is the time when you would have it, right? About the one power, and it all flows very smoothly. It's all very well done. The acting was great. Rosamund, again, just pretty much nails it. I didn't have any issues with it. Egwene nailed it. There was a little bit of over dramatization of her scaredness and hesitancy right at the beginning, and also when Egwene was attempting to essentially enter the void, essentially meditate. It seemed like her face was a little busy and full of emotion for someone who's meditating and not thinking of anything, right? But that runs afoul of the previous issue where, you know, do we really want Lan to be a stoic badass who never speaks to anyone ever or smiles at all, right? Or do we want him to laugh and act, right? That's kind of a problem there. Converting it to the medium, I don't really have a huge objection to that. The training session was pretty good, I thought. The nice forest scenes. I quite like them. I didn't hear a lot of the music. The magic, the one power around that little blue emerald stone, Moraine's blue stone, quite pretty, very awesome. It was good stuff. You could clearly tell that what was happening mattered and was important there, right? Oh, those flashes, look at that. You know, and if you were paying actual attention, you might even have gleaned, had you not read the book, that something was important about the flashes before Moraine spoke about it. Pretty well done there. I thought there was a really good line by Moraine here. You don't listen to the wind listens to you, right? That's big, right? That's Belgarian being told you are a member of the family of, you know, 9,000-year-old sorcerers. Okay, that's level of Frodo. You know, this is the literal fucking one ring belonging to the Dark Lord, right? And then number two, or this one is the wind listens to you. You are magical. Big deal, right? Quite well done. And then we have a brief interlude with Rand coming up to Egwene or other way around. Sorry, Egwene coming back to camp, lying down with Rand and snuggling up. I don't think she was going in for a kiss. I'm not sure that's what it was. Maybe she was. Maybe she was trying to wake him up and get him up. But didn't really seem like that too much. Maybe it was just looking to snuggle. And we've got this great... They interact. He pushes her away and then says, I'm sorry, I don't mean any offense by that. I just blah, blah, blah. Please understand. And she forgives him and says, no, you're fine. And then and then she does the same or something, pushes him away, or somehow apologizes to him, and he accepts it. Right. Either way, very mature. I really like that they are very mature in their reactions. It's not this instant flexing to drama to drive the narrative. It's not that. It's they're adults. It's an adult interaction. It's great. It's really refreshing. I think in the books it was different because the kids were a little younger, like decently younger, like not 15, like they weren't 15, but they were like 16 or 18, right? Uh, Younger. These kids are like clearly 20. They're like thinking. They're like in control of themselves. I quite like it. It's quite refreshing. Let's see if we can get this directly in my eye. Yeah. Okay. Everything's going well so far. Okay. Well, I think the sun is doing this deliberately. But that's why I get up early in the morning. I like the morning sun, so we're going to go with it. Okay, so next we have this. Oh, Jesus. We have this camp scene, right? Breaking camp, right? They all woke up in the morning, they break camp, and they leave. So the first thing we see is. Oh, yes. Yeah, the first thing we see is Perrin last night sitting around the fire. Okay, I guess they're not breaking camp yet, but we discover that Perrin is hiding a wound. He's got an issue with his leg, and he's not telling anybody about it, which definitely fits with the Perrin character. He doesn't want to trouble anybody, and he doesn't really think very well about these kind of things, as exemplified by his whole guilt over his wife issue, even though it's clearly not his fault. Um, and he's see now this is where I'm a little confused. So, in the past, Perrin had a reason for hiding wounds, for not wanting to trouble others, right? He is just reluctant, reticent to rely on others. That's not really what I'm trying to say. But in this case, it's confused with whether or not he's punishing himself. Because he's under the illusion that he killed his wife, that he's somehow at fault, he's trying to punish himself for it. Or is he trying to not impose on others and not be a bother, right? Both of those fit with Perrin's character. Well, no, maybe the self-punishment doesn't really fit with Perrin's character. It doesn't really seem. Oh no, it does, because later he has big issues with like the wolf thing, and he's like he thinks he's an evil person because he turns into a wolf. He's not really thinking very clearly about this sort of thing. He's sensitive, basically, a little overly sensitive, not really terribly rational. So he's hiding his wound, and now we don't know whether it's to punish himself or to avoid being a bother. With the introduction of the wife issue, whereas in the books we knew it was because he didn't want to be a bother, or I don't think he was actually even hiding a wound in the books. But and then we have Egwene come on up and sit down next to him, and have a conversation at a campfire. Which this is very well done. This is very well acted. There's a little bit of awkwardness between them, sort of like, if you and your friend's wife go somewhere, there's not really a whole lot to talk about, right? You kind of got to small talk through it. So, there's a little bit of an awkward silence. But they're still friends. They're still comfortable with each other. It's not a problem. But now, again, the wife issue jumps in here, interjects, and has a bit of a, ew, can you see my spittle when I speak better now? That's gross. Now, we don't know if there's awkwardness between Perrin and Egwene because he has a crush on her, or because he killed his wife and she doesn't want to bring that up, right? The sadness issue. In the books, they were just awkward because he didn't know how to talk to girls, basically, is what it was. There wasn't really a whole lot of romance between them. I mean, there was as much romance between them as you would expect when traveling alone for several weeks overland with an attractive female your age who you grew up with, and being in a life and death situation. Like, that's going to generate something, obviously. But that was a quite normal amount. Whereas here, there's a little bit more, seems a little bit off, but still fits pretty well. And then we get into the conversations where Egwene talks about, well, we just get into a moment with Egwene where she says Parent says, "Do you think we're gonna go home?" She says, "No." That's it. Totally rational. A hard woman, right? A composed, strong person, which is definitely just nailing the character. Absolutely, she's a realist. She doesn't. Yeah, that's Egwene, right? And then we have some more trials and tribulations that happen. We have the bat vomit, which is terrible, obviously. Choking up bats. So we have Ishmael coming to their dreams, not free yet of Sheol, apparently. He's not free until Rand reaches the stone, I believe. That's when Ishmael shows up in person, I think. So he sends them dreams about terribleness, and I love that you can see the bats lined up around the edges of the wards Moraine set. So I'm a little confused, though, because Rand was outside the wards, and so forth, wasn't protected, and so had a bat vomit up from his throat. Whereas the others, the bats were stopped. But then why did they still have dreams about the bats and about the man? How did he... Oh, is that what it was? Did she set up wards against Shadowspawn and that stopped the bats, but she didn't set up wards against dreams? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe this when Moraine says, "Oh shit, I better guard everybody's dreams. We're being attacked from here." Maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know if that's... Well, that's certainly accurate to the books, as Moraine saying, "Hey, I can protect you." They go in that little depression under a tree, and they camp under there. That Lan spotted and found a while back across the river. And she's talking about protecting their dreams and things like that, setting wards. But we don't... Well, and we get discussion... Oh, that's right, because at that point in the book we get discussion of, can't you set wards that will prevent them from seeing us? And Moraine says yes, but it will also draw things like, if I make it powerful enough. No, because that's what you learn when you're in the Blight, right? I can make them not see us, but I can't force them away, because that will just attract all of them, Anyway. And then we have an explosion, a man-child explosion by Rand, which, again, fits the books. He's emotionally mature in that he can interact with others in a healthy manner, in a mature manner, but he's not yet in control of his own emotions, which makes sense, and is definitely part of his personality. There's a lot of anti-authority distrust here, and the acting, he pulls it off absolutely convincingly. It's great stuff. And then, and Lan steps in to step between him and Moraine, and there's like a tense moment. It's good stuff. And then we have a little bit of a back and forth between Mat and Rand, which is even better than good. It's just phenomenal. Those two feel to me like they've been friends their whole life, and they've got the other person's behaviors down pat. They know what they're doing. Mat is a quick thinker. He gets straight to the point. He knows exactly what's bugging Rand and exactly what Rand is implying and thinking. And he disarms it, and it's just perfect. That's a fantastic interaction. I wonder if they were copying from the books. I don't remember anything specific on that. And then there's the funny fireball line, which is actually funny, which is enjoyable. And then this is the one moment, I think I've mentioned this before, but I think this is the moment. I think you can see Moraine look at Rand as she walks to her horse and gives her final word, "We're leaving. This is the plan." And Rand doesn't do it. Well, guess what? She compelled him to do it. Everyone else falls in line. He doesn't. He can channel. He's resisting compulsion. I'm pretty sure it's that he's resisting compulsion because he can channel, not because he's a strong-minded person, as they say later in the books. I'm pretty sure I read this somewhere, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm not really sure. All of it's great. I didn't notice any music or sound here at all. It just seemed normal, even. Oh, the look of Baal-Zaman was... I heard someone critique it. I thought it was pretty bad, but I think it's okay. I think they could have done a little better with the makeup. They could have... Right now, he looks like a piece of wood that got burnt with eyes drawn on it. Like, it doesn't look like flesh. I think they could have done a better job of making burnt flesh look. And then turning the eyes I think the fire in the eyes should have been an organic flesh to fire transition, right? So either make the eyelid exist but be physically empty, there's nothing inside, and then in the distance you see fire in the eyes, or maybe turn red and cracked, and then there's fire like burning or something. I don't know, but right now it just looks like he's just like a sculpture. It doesn't look like a real human. But that said, he's wearing strange clothing that doesn't fit their aesthetic these days. I quite like that. Yeah, he's just a scary dude now. It's all good. Okay, it's been another long while and a change of scenery and everything else. In this scene, we have the chance meeting with the White Cloaks in the woods. We have a small little interlude where Moraine explains to Egwene about a little bit about lying and how Aes Sedai are bound and such things. And then we have the speech, the Manetheren speech, where Moraine, they sing a song and such. So, man, apparently I don't recall a lot of what I just watched. I can't just pick this up. I have to be in the mood for it. So during the White Cloak meeting, it was all pretty great. A lot of the acting was quite good, right? The blonde-haired White Cloak dude was high and mighty and military and officious, and it was great. Worked out real well. The questioner was all of those things as well, plus a lot of arrogance and brutality, and you could just see it automatically. And that was excellent. And Rosamund did a very good job. She drops the ball in some occasions, but not this one. She was some pretty good acting, pretty good speaking and such. We know that she's faking, and yeah, we know that she's faking, but it doesn't feel like she's faking in the show, kind of thing. Feels pretty decent. The visuals of the White Cloak armor was just amazing. It was really awesome. So accuracy as to the books. Someone pointed out that it wasn't Valda that they met, rather it was Valda rather than the other guy, Bornhold, right? Okay, but whatever. They meet a White Cloak questioner in the woods and a White Cloaks and such, and they have an encounter, and you just gotta deal with that. And then there was a bit of a change here. So there's the issue with the Aes Sedai, with the White Cloak commander. I forget the name. Commander, captain, White Cloak captain, seeing the woman's wound, some random lady traveler on the road with her escort, and advising her to go see an Aes Sedai to get it healed, which everyone who read the books is like, what? That's stupid, right? What the hell are you talking about? But note that they're doing the same thing as before. They're wildly compressing all of the different things that would have been conveyed to the reader already at this point anyway, usually from the perspective of White Cloaks or something, or just from exposition about them, into one quick scene. And what has happened here then is the captain, recommends she go see an Aes Sedai for healing, but the questioner is literally holding rings taken from dead Aes Sedai. So right off the bat, it's giving you a notion of the conflict, of the tension between the questioners and the captains, which does kind of exist, but I mean it's explained in the show. It's explained in the books, but at the same time, it barely ever has any effect at all. I mean, it really doesn't matter that much. You get the Morgaze scenes where she's interacting with a captain, and the questioners are trying things, and they're holding back the questioners. Yeah, but it's always a different function of the White Cloaks. It's never a different. It's a different motivation of the White Cloaks. It's never a separate entity from the White Cloaks. And it's the same here. They're just the piece. It's a piece of the White Cloaks. So they're overemphasizing the difference between the questioners and the captains, and making it more important. And that didn't make any sense, but it does fit the nature of the books where they're highlighting that difference. Let's see. The questioner from the old scene, great. He was awesome. It was good stuff. Good to meet him. The next scene we have is a quick little lie exposition talking about Aes Sedai lying. And it's great. That's great. She said, we came from Terran Ferry, which is true. They came from Terran Ferry. You can twist this in a lot of ways. And not to jump ahead, but when they get to the Varen part, where Varen in the couple of next books says, oh, Moraine sent me. Everyone says, oh, that's a lie. Moraine did not send Varen to Faldera to talk to Ingtar and the boss. I forget the guy's name. And they're right. She didn't. But Varen said that Moraine sent her. Varen didn't say Moraine sent her any specific place or any specific time. Moraine could have sent Varen to get a book from the library 20 years ago, and that's what Varen was saying. You can lie with words in a million different ways, and that's the lesson that Egwene is getting here. Be careful what you hear. And Egwene is just absorbing it with her typical puzzled look. I'm kind of noticing a little bit of disappointment in that lady's accent, or that lady's acting. I'm being a little disappointed by it. She doesn't seem to be able to express anything except like a mild puzzlement, a questioning look. What is it? What is her expression? It's there's something along those lines, right? There's not a lot of nuance in her expression. So I can have this expression, a little bit of disbelief, but acceptance. And then I can have this expression, which is disbelief with very little acceptance, a lot of doubt. And then I can have this expression, mild disbelief with puzzlement, right? She seems to have only one. Huh. Oh. 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 That's it. That's the only one she ever expresses that I've seen so far. She has the other stuff down. Actually, even when she's in worry mode, like in the fight scenes and the tragic stuff, it just seems to be she furrows her brow or does not furrow her brow. Furrows her brow or does not furrow her brow. That's it. That's the only thing. Also, side note, please, for God's sake, get the mole removed. Oh my God. Yeah, maybe that's a beauty thing in other countries, but Jesus Christ. It is distracting, and they keep filming her from that exact angle. Ooh, kind of gross. I have terrible skin myself. I sympathize, but wow. Okay, and then we have the Manetheren song and speech. The song is cringy. I don't like it. I don't like watching people sing. I don't like that kind of thing, but it's pretty mild. It's interesting, and they tell the story quite accurately from the book. It was pretty good. Rosamund did a good job of portraying being injured at this time, being speaking is painful and stressful. That was pretty well conveyed, actually. I got to be honest. Like, I critiqued her acting in the beginning as a kind of a poor actress, but look, at this point, she's like 9 out of 10 here. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of instances of good acting. There was 10 instances of acting, and 9 of them were great, perfectly fine. One of them she messed up on, so maybe I've undervalued her a little bit. In the speech, she mentioned that Beldine, the Aes Sedai who killed the entire Trolloc army by pulling away too much of the power to handle, burned herself out. Burned out, which is a phrase directly from the book. And then they went a little bit further, and it said it burned her from the inside out, which is a departure from the book. That's not what happens. The most that ever happens is you break the little thing in your brain that allows you to channel the thing that heals, that gets healed later. Even Lews Therin, when he summoned down more power than anybody could ever grasp at one time and created a literal volcano with a lightning strike, only burnt himself out mentally, we can presume. What happened, what he died from, was the lightning strike blasting through him into the ground, presumably. There was never any indication of anything else. So this is a new thing that they're talking about, and this is, of course, leading up to the later scenes in the show where it displays burnout as a literal physical burning from the inside, which is a great way to portray it. That's a really good way to portray it. I mean, again, we're talking about a translation to the visual medium. How do you portray agelessness on an Aes Sedai's face? You flat out don't. That doesn't make any sense. That's not something the human mind can see. How do you display burning out from the inside, a little piece of your brain breaking? Do you tell the audience it's happening? No. You show them burning from the inside out. It makes it a very sensible sort of thing. If this were a true translation, direct translation to video, you would have narration over the top of it. You would have some weird anime or animated sort of scene that like somehow goes into their head and shows something breaking, and so you know what's happening as a watcher, as a listener, rather than as a reader. Also, two special notes. Again, the scenery. Holy fucking Christ! Oh my God! Obviously. And then second, the music. Whew. They had a couple of different roaming across the country, massive journeys, faraway places, mystical happenings. Great, great soundtrack, very well done. It wasn't like in your face, but at the same time there was a little bit of vocals that kind of came out, and were emphasized in the track, which were just fantastic. It was beautiful. I look up a couple of different songs from shows, and these two came close. I may end up looking up some of these. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back.